Hey, welcome to MWOD Hangout. We have I'm just going to come clear, two of my besties on today. These guys are family to me. They're the aunties and uncles to my daughters. They hang out with my wife. These guys, like, we go on vacation, I want to hang out with these guys. So, of course, that automatically makes them awesome because they're part of my family. But more importantly, what they're doing now and a current project that they're on sort of merits talking about in real time. And we brought them on today because I think there's some lessons and some ideas that can make the rest of our daily lives better. And it's such an inspirational, amazing story about this incredible couple that we were like, hey, we've got to get these guys on the MWOD Hangout. So let me introduce two of my besties. This is Jenny LaBaw and Marcus Brown. Thank you guys for joining us. Now,
thank you for having us.
Hang on one second. So let me just set this up so people know how awesome you guys are. So Jenny LaBaw is phenomenal collegiate athlete extraordinaire. I came to know her primarily as a CrossFit athlete originally. She's a games level competitor, a super jock, and that's sort of how we got hooked up initially and ended up in the sort of the same universe as sort of chasing this performance dragon. And I will just go on record as saying that Jenny is one of the most mutant friends I have. She's such a mutant that, like, I think she has a third lung that we'll talk about eventually, because she doesn't have a leg, she has a lung. And then her partner, Marcus Brown, is one of the America's and the world's best and foremost freestyle skiers, but I would say slalom water skiing athletes. He's been a top 10 ranked superstar for ages and ages and ages. You might have seen his stuff on Flow Point. He has filmed for us in the past. He's an extraordinary cinematographer and filmmaker and boat designer, ski designer, all around. And frankly, don't take this the wrong way, Jenny, I may have used you to get close to Marcus at some point, but now I'm realizing that I'm using Marcus to get close to you. So welcome to the show, you guys. I know. Welcome to the show, you guys. We're so glad to have you on. So let's just frame for everyone what's about to go down in 5 days, because this is a big deal, and this is the impetus for coming on and having a conversation. So let's see if you set us up to talk about what's about to happen, and then we can get into some of the nitty-gritty about, there's Juliet walking around in the background like a pro, getting into the nitty-gritty about training and how some of the lifestyle aspects of things that you've been working on have influenced the training has influenced your lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to give you guys a second just to take the field and make an introduction about why we're here.
All right. So in 5 days, I am going to start running across Colorado, 500 miles over the Colorado Rockies, about a little over 32,000 feet elevation gain, and I think 27 feet elevation drop. To raise awareness for epilepsy and hopefully raise a little bit of money to help find a cure. It's near and dear to my heart because I have. Well, what?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm like, this is an incredible, disgusting event. I mean, it's so far, and everyone knows that I'm an endurance athlete, so I really appreciate you guys, needing to do this. But and you were just about to get there when I interrupted, but I've known you for a long time and watched you as a professional athlete, high-level athlete, as good an athlete as I know, with this thing that's sort of in your back pocket that you kind of casually threw out epilepsy, but like, talk about what this is and what's going on.
Well, basically, epilepsy is misfiring in your brain. So that's the easiest way to put it. And it affects people in all different ways. I have what's called simple partial seizures. And when I was 8 years old, I was diagnosed. I was flipping around on the monkey bars at school, and all of a sudden face planted in the gravel and got up because I was super embarrassed and didn't want anybody to see, and started spinning again because that's what's good for you to do, and just played like nothing happened. And it happened several times. So eventually I went home and said, Mom, something's going on. Like, I keep falling off the bars and I have this weird feeling in my arm. So we went to the doctors, and after several tests was determined that I have epilepsy. And simple partial is one variation. And I just have constantly in my right arm, there's this tingling sensation. And the easiest way for me to explain it is that it's like you hit your funny bone. It doesn't really feel like that, but that's probably the easiest way for everyone else to kind of relate to it. And it's there all the time. And after being living with this for 25 years, I don't really notice it unless I'm talking about it. So lately, planning this event, I've been feeling it a lot. All of a sudden, my arm just starts doing weird things. What do I do with my hands?
Whose hands are these?
Yeah. So yeah, I've spent my life with epilepsy, and one time when I was 14 years old, I had a grand mal seizure, which are now called tonic-clonic, and that's the kind that most people think of when they think of seizures, and that's where you fall to the ground and shake and lose consciousness. So I do have those, but my medication controls them, and my lifestyle controls them to where I just have this sensation in my arm. And I didn't say this, when a seizure actually comes on for me, the sensation increases, and I just can't use my right arm for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, and then I go about my day. I haven't ever lost consciousness with that one. And had
she's lucky that she can control the grand mals, that, you know, the big ones with medication. Very lucky,
very lucky.
This you know, it's interesting that I know you as, you know, in the coterie of best athletes that I know. Like if you ask me about an immaculate athlete who's really good about mechanics, moves well, eats immaculately, you know, your training and positions are good, you have maybe one of the most fierce aerobic engines I've ever seen. I mean, I'm pretty sure your hematocrit is like 50 all the time. It's like you literally were something. I know you were like, I was born in Colorado at like 20,000 feet, and I just happened, and I have a third ventricle. But, you know, a lot of times this would be being a diagnosis of this, you know, the reaction of the person would be really to be fearful. And yet you really went, you know, deep into as athletic and as fierceness as, you know, as you could. You know, can you talk about just this as a ghost as a child, you know, what that meant, having this lingering over your head, and even the impacts of the medication, dialing that in and out? I mean, I've seen you switch medications and go fetal, you know, and deal with that. Can you talk about what, like, sort of what this looks like in the back of your head as an athlete, and even as a young athlete developing, and did that drive you, or what happened? Can you just talk about that a little bit, I think?
Yeah, so I am so fortunate. I have a family that is absolutely amazing, and I don't know that for most of my childhood I really knew that anything was wrong. I mean, I knew that I had something, that I had seizures. Like, I knew that was, but I never was told from my family, the people that actually mattered to me, that I couldn't do something. And it wasn't until planning this event that my mom told me that she's been terrified my entire life. So that's how precious she is she's been scared her whole life and never told me. But yeah, I from a young age have been competitive in sports. And yeah, there were side effects. I mean, the medication is the worst thing with this. For me, it's the worst thing with this disorder, is you just feel like crap. I don't really know what normal feels like, I don't think. I mean, I remember playing softball when I was in 5th grade, and I was seeing double. That's really, really hard. Really hard to go hit a ball when you're seeing double. I'm like just hoping for the best, like, which one do I swing at? But yeah, I think that I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it never has inhibited me from doing what I wanted to do, because I didn't let it and my family didn't let it.
So talk about that for a second, because there are some things about you. You're pretty rigorous in your training. You're not a maniac person that just drives yourself into the ground and breaks. It's not who you are. Like, I would say you're a brilliant high-level coach. You have an excellent movement practice yourself. You're active almost every day of the week, and you also do sports, right? You actually do other sports besides barbells and muscle ups, right? But, you know, could you talk about some of the lifestyle things that you've discovered that really are part and parcel with being a high-level athlete? Because, you know, some of the things that you do to, I think, help mitigate some of the effects of this disease also are the things that I should be doing as a human being, trying to protect myself in the long haul. Can you talk about the things that have been really successful for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, just like you said, active every day, but paying attention to your body. So for me, I have to pay way closer attention to my body probably than the average Joe, because increased stress is not a good thing for seizure activity. If your body is taxed beyond a good place, that's when I start having seizures, right? Being overheated, that kind of stuff. So I've had to pay really close attention to that. But because of that, I think I probably am really really smart with my training as far as not overdoing it, because I do listen to my body and stop when I need to stop and push when I feel like I can push.
Be more specific about that. What are some of the tells? Like, give me the granular. Like, how do I know when I'm cooked? Not because your training volume is actually very high and has been very high, and it's not like you got there overnight. I mean, you have been training for literally decades.
Right.
But can you talk about some of those things? How do you know when you're feeling like you're getting cooked or when it's ready to go? I mean, for you, what does that mean?
For me, it's a lot of it's lack of motivation, because I'm a very motivated person. So if I start feeling like, oh shit, I have to go get in the gym and work out today, or like, that's not a good sign. If your brain is taxed, then there's a good chance that your body was taxed before that. So that's a big one for me. I would say
she's very motivated. For instance, the years that she
is he here?
the years that she made it to the CrossFit Games as an individual, she was training by herself. Almost probably 99% of her workouts were by herself, trying to train and compete with the best in the world. So that gives you a little bit of insight at how motivated and driven she is as an individual. And so if she, within that context, is like, hey, I don't feel like working out today, then you know she's probably pretty burned out, and pretty cooked.
Yeah,
I like that. We talk a lot about people. Desire to train is a big one. One of the guys who programs for me, Brian McKenzie, whenever I do my Omega Wave or I track some of the heart rate variability, some of these other things, before I get any score, he asks me to evaluate my thinking. How do I feel today? What's my desire to train on 1 to 10? And literally, it's pretty powerful now. After training for so long, I have a pretty intuitive sense. I'm like, man, I'm burnt. I don't want to train. Or, I just feel sleepy, but I feel like I can train. Those are different feelings. Yeah. But listening to that has been really, really a powerful tool, and does actually match up really, really closely with what all the data says about my recovery. And I really appreciate that, because I think people aren't listening. They feel like on Tuesdays I squat heavy, on Wednesdays I run, on Thursdays, and it doesn't, and regardless of training volume or lifestyle, I think this is a really, really powerful tool that you should develop. What is my body feeling like today? And actually developing a relationship with your coach. I mean, like, how are you feeling today? I mean, I think that's one of the most powerful things that the coach-athlete dyad is not going on is, dude, how's it going? Are you cooked? What's happening?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And Kelly, you mentioned that I'm a strength and conditioning coach too. That's what I do for a living. And that is the first conversation I have with every client or member that walks in the door. Say, hey, how you feeling? And if they're saying taxed and their program is something crazy, then the program changes. And that's for coaches and athletes know that a program is just a piece of paper with some words on it. Your body is your program. So listen to it and adjust accordingly every single day.
I think,
go ahead, Mark, sorry.
But there's got to also, let me go with that too. You also have to know how to push. So there you got to know where that red line is. If your goal is to be competitive and you're always just, oh, I feel like I could just take a nap today, so I'm going to, you've got to learn how to push through some limits, and you have to fail to know where your body can go before it fails. Is that the right way to say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mine's totally off topic, but one thing that Jenny is probably more than anybody else I know is very attentive to is her exposure to nature and her exposure to things outside. And I think that plays into that stress piece where, as an epileptic, she's become hypersensitive to stressors in her environment and maybe negative, stress input. And so she's naturally indirectly migrated in her life, her lifestyle to want to be outside, to want to be running, to want to be mountain biking, want to be hiking. I think that above all else for me is something that really stands out with what she does with her training. She's not always just pounding and pounding, whether it's training for this 500-mile run or it's training for the CrossFit Games or it's training for soccer, whatever it is. She balances that piece pretty well, I think, more than most people I know.
Or you take it to, if you do have to pound that day, you take it, for me, I have to take it to some place that I want to go. And for this is another kind of side topic, but with epilepsy, fluorescent lighting is really, really bad. A lot of gyms have fluorescent lighting. So for me, I oftentimes take my training, if I'm training for the games or if I'm just doing some strength training for this run, I'll go and take it outside of that fluorescent lighting, because that's not usually a good stimulus for me. Not good to have a seizure when you have a barbell over your head. Not a good idea.
Well, it only those fluorescent lightings are only like 1 million cycles per second. That
That's bad.
You're supposed to do a lot of spinning and then stare at the thing. You know, it's interesting. You talk about an organic way of, hey, sort of, you know, of regulating stress. I think people don't have a very good program. I think we're really good at going from 0 to 60. You know, we have a million drinks, pre-WOD, exercise hard, kill yourself, Jack 3D extreme, have 15 espressos, right? But we don't really do a very good job of coming from 60 to 0. I think, you know, a value statement there about being in nature. I mean, I think there is plenty of research about saying, hey, look, people have, you know, nature deficit disorder syndrome. They don't go outside, but there is something to the fact that you're saying, hey, that I notice that, you know, one of the ways that I mitigate stress is being outside. And are there other cues? Because I think that's a really important one, that, you know, people aren't getting enough non-exercise activity, and they aren't just sort of subjecting themselves to the things that they need to do, including vitamin D. You know, I know plenty of executives who get up early in the dark, go train, go back home, and they literally haven't been outside. They're like vampires with big deadlifts, you know? So, you know, do you have other ways of managing stress? It seems like that's an important piece for you.
Yeah, it's a huge piece. So yeah, I think, I mean, we talk about being outside in nature, but one thing for me, my 2 little yellow labs are my pride and joy. So spending time with them. I've taken some changes in my life in the last couple of months, which have been awesome. And one day I was laying out in the grass with my yellow lab Ziggy, and I just was laying there, and I thought, I'm like, I don't remember the last time I literally just laid and enjoyed being with my dog. And so I think that you got to take a break from life. You got to take a break from the crazy, whatever that is for you. If that means you're reading a book, or you're hanging out with your dog, or you're sitting on the bench at the park, whatever it is, take a moment to just be and just let your brain go where it wants to go. And I don't know if that's a form of meditation, but for me, I think it might be. I've been working with a woman through Invictus, Heidi Fioron. She's amazing, and she's gotten me to get a little bit more into meditation. I just downloaded the app Calm, which I don't think I've actually made it through an episode yet, because I fall asleep before it gets to the end, which I think is kind of the point. But yeah, just letting your brain stop for a little bit, or let it go where it wants to go, rather than focusing on something all the time.
That meditative practice is, you know, I can speak to Juliet and I have, if you had asked us, you know, what is one thing, aspect of your physical culture and self that you'd want to change, given that we feel like we leave a little bit of crazy life and 2 daughters and work things and plus training, is I'd say we definitely say, hey, we wanted to meditate, and we're now in month 3 of a physical breathing practice.
Yeah.
You know, that we fell in with Laird Hamilton, and he was like, hey, you've got to do this. And we do it every morning, or whenever we can fit it in the day, but it's about 12 to 15 minutes of a mechanical breathing practice that for me has felt like it's the meditation I've searched for my whole life, and really has been, I mean, pretty transformative. I feel like, you know, it's a big, powerful thing. And what I can tell you is that however you get there, you know, when I track my data on omega wave and heart rate variability and central nervous system readiness, lately I pegged the green. I mean, my central nervous system is ready to go because I'm spending time on this other side, which means that I can work harder, which is a little bit counterintuitive. If I chill out, I can go harder and more often, which for me, I like that, you know, because I feel like I get a good bang for the buck there. And I think that's an important piece. And honestly, the older athletes and the higher level athletes, I know this does factor in. I love hearing that from you. That's killer.
It's balance, right? That's what it's all about, is balance.
Right. Balance is like the pendulum swings one way and you're like, and then it swings the other way. And there's that moment as you're hauling ass through the middle that you're in balance. Let me ask you this. You know, you have a good movement practice. It's CrossFit based. It's complete. I know your training is really, really good. There's a nutritional aspect to this about inflammation around this that I know plays a part. And can you talk about some of your nutritional strategies? Because I mean, that's one of the issues around this. I see all the oils that people are taking and all this thing about trying to manage some systemic inflammation. Talk about your experience as an athlete with nutrition and the way that you mitigate some of the seizures with this. Yeah.
So I've gotten actually quite a bit of ridicule from the CrossFit world and from the competitors that I eat paleo. They're like, no, you don't. You can't eat paleo and compete. And I'm like, well, actually I do. Like, paleo isn't necessarily low carb. It's just smart carb, right? So, I've been paleo-ish for, I mean, I was really strict paleo for probably 3 years. And then I've had to I've just felt a little bit better with a little bit more carb in my diet.
What carbs are you using then? for a feeling.
Not pasta.
Slow resistant.
and-
Yeah, it's like sweet potatoes. We're doing some white potatoes now. Those are the main ones. Squashes right out of my garden.
Pizza
Pizza, cookies. No, I'm just kidding.
once a year.
It's all low sugar, right? But it's real food. And I think people can get too crazy with diet. I think that they can get absolutely nuts. I've never weighed and measured one thing in my life, which I probably should eventually, just so I can get an idea. But I think I go more by feel for myself. I know my body better than anybody else, so I go by feel, and I know I've played around with it enough to know that I need to train like I train. I have to have a little bit higher carb to feel the energy that
But I think everyone has shifted in that direction for sure.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
no one is saying, hey, we can't put out the work volumes we're doing without feeding that. And even in Glassman's original, eat enough carbohydrates over exercise, I think we just didn't. There were no guidelines about that. Well, how much carbohydrate and what kind of carbohydrate? I think that's a big deal. So what you're really saying is there's not a lot of grains, and I don't think I've ever seen you really eat sugar ever. Maybe once, not much.
Maybe
right?
twice.
Maybe twice in like the years that I've seen you. But those ideas. Do you eat dairy?
No, we've just started doing a little bit of raw cheese. I actually was just over in Scandinavia. I just got back last week, and they literally everything there has dairy in it. Like I couldn't eat if I didn't eat dairy. But I noticed that usually when I eat dairy here, I get really bad stomach aches, and I didn't have any stomach aches. And talking to the people over there, the locals, they're saying, well, yeah, everything's grass fed. So
She asked if the meat was grass fed or if the dairy, and they're like, "What do you mean?
Like, what
grass
do you mean?
fed?
Like if we just kill the cow and then we eat it." I'm like, oh, what a concept. So
Everything's grass.
So no, I don't eat dairy very much. Just this last, occasionally it's in there, but I do notice mucusy stuff with that, which isn't good either. So
But
I would say most of the time, no dairy.
how long did you eat this way in high school? Because I think it's interesting. Like, and do you feel better now as this highest level around sort of symptoms with this eating regime that's different?
Dude, I literally survived in college on Pop-Tarts and Easy Mac. I don't know if you know what Easy Mac is, but it's literally microwaved.
It's like the
cardboard. I don't know what it is, but I survived on that. I don't know how. I played collegiate soccer at that, but no, I definitely feel way better, and I'm leaner, and I'm stronger, and I perform better. Everything is way better. There's a lot of science with epilepsy and a ketosis diet that it helps control seizures. So my goal when my life settles down athletically is to try, and it might even actually be before that, try a ketosis diet and see how I do on that, because if I could get off medication, that would be the number one goal. This stuff is the neurological medication is a trip, man.
The backstory is that she hasn't said yet. It's like any disorder. When you live with it and you have to be medicated, otherwise you can't function like a normal human being, that wears on you. And her whole goal, like I can just see, it's just this hope that's bubbling up that she can someday be free of medication. Certain things we like to put in our body, like caffeine, because it makes us feel good. We're okay being addicted and being dependent on that. But when it's something that you don't really have a choice over, it's a totally different animal. And that's I think her motivator for some time experimenting and being able to see if she can get off completely, because it wears on you.
I can relate to that a little bit. Juliet had thyroid cancer when she was 19, and they took her thyroid out, and she takes thyroid every single day. And, having enough thyroid, getting a script, like heavy, it's always a thing, like she doesn't take thyroid. It's not like, she, something bad happens, like she will shut down. So, but that thyroid has been, it's like a thing in our life all the time around, and if you've, ever woken up and been in the same house as Juliet, she's slow to start because there's no thyroid in her body when she wakes up. And it takes at least, a cup of coffee and a good electrical start to get that diesel running. And it's interesting to be around that and know a little bit of what you're saying, just because that, it's always, do I have her meds? Is she, do we travel enough? Do we, we have to swim by the store? And I think people lose track of the fact, because Juliet's so high functioning, that sometimes, there's this underlying thing that she manages so well. And, and if you're around you don't even know necessarily. Again, I think the only time I've ever saw you was when you were changing medications and you were titrating up or down on a new dose. And And literally you would be in a ball shivering, and then you would come out and be like, I feel great and good enough. And let's do a water ski run. And you water ski, and then you go like, and then like you would shiver down, and then you wake up and be like, hey, we trained. And then you'd be like, where's Jenny? And she's like under the blanket on the, so, and you're pretty stoic about it too,
I'm probably going to, I haven't really said this to anybody, so I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it to the entire world here on this little hangout. But I probably have done something pretty stupid, but it's worked out for me. Since that last titration, when I changed medication, I went in, I was not functioning. I mean, I wanted to sleep all the time. I didn't feel good. I couldn't train. Things were not good. And so I went in and I talked to my neurologist that I had just started with, the new neurologist here. And I said, hey, this medication I haven't had a seizure this entire time. Can we back off the dosage a little bit? Because I'm not doing well in life. And he said, no, absolutely not. And I said, well, what if we work more with diet? And I changed to a ketosis diet and we start tapering off. And he said, no, I'm not willing to do that. And I said, well,
dude got fired.
I fired him. I was like, thank you for your time. I don't think you're the doctor for me. And I peaced out. And then, probably not the smartest thing I've ever done, I decided on my own, without telling a soul, not even Marcus, that I was going to start titrating off my medication a little bit. Because once again, I know my body more than anybody else, and I was smart with how I did it. I took a little bit at a time, and I'm currently at a quarter of the dose that the guy prescribed me, and I'm still seizure free, and I am not tired all the time, and life is way better. He was pissed when I told him.
Well, I understand, right? Well,
but I know it wasn't smart. I'm not telling him, don't go do that. Please don't go do that.
But what I, just so we're clear, you are still on meds. Second is that your nutrition is really, really tight. I don't think people realize that you are, when you're a ninja, and not like an overt ninja. It's not like you shove it in everyone's face. It's just like you just don't eat those bad things. When I come to your house, there's nothing fun in your fridge, and that's sad for me. And then the third thing is that you're up on the training, and you're pretty regular, and you sleep regularly, and you do the things that you have to do to manage this. So I just want to point out to those folks who are listening. Okay, so here you are. You have decided you sat out a CrossFit Games cycle for an injury that had been lingering and that was very old. A little bit of a neck pathology stuff. And what I saw you do is suddenly say, well, I'm a brilliant endurance runner. And I don't think to date you've ever done anything like this where you sort of put yourself out there and were vulnerable. I know you've talked about with Reebok about epilepsy. I know that, you represent and you kind of have talked on behalf of epilepsy and children and athletes with epilepsy. This is the first time you've ever said, hey, look, there is this thing I need to talk about, and that's something I'm going to raise consciousness about. Talk about what was the trigger that got you to decide to run this 500 miles and raise money and awareness for epilepsy, because it's pretty amazing. And we'll make sure all the links to your site and what's going on live, because the videos are great. And I mean, I feel like I wish I was doing something awesome when I watched this, and I wish that I could run 500 miles.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I can.
Do that, Kelly. You can join me
every step
of the way. It's only a couple steps. You'll be fine. So in March, I think it was, Marcus and I are just flipping through Netflix, and we got on and we found a 30 for 30 on a guy named Terry Fox, who was in the 80s. He was a Canadian that was diagnosed with cancer and had to have his leg amputated, and he decided that he was going to run across Canada from east to west to raise awareness and money for cancer research. And so we watched this documentary, and Marcus and I,
pretty powerful.
It was super powerful. Yeah.
We don't want to give it away, but it's good.
You gotta watch it. 30 for 30, Terry Fox. It's amazing. I think it's called Into the Wind.
The dude's like a national hero for I had no idea. Some of my ski buddies from Canada, I talked to him recently, and he's like, dude, I had no idea, Terry Fox was a Canadian hero, basically. So
yeah, so Marcus and I looked at each other that night, and I was like, I got to do something. I don't know what I've been talking about it. It's time. I'm going to do something. And then life got in the way, and I started back to everyday stuff and didn't really do anything about it. And I had this huge life shift. And we were driving to Colorado to go see my family in June. And we were driving from Durango up to Silverton through Mullis Pass, and we actually have a picture of when it happened. The second I looked at Marcus, and tears just streaming down my face, and I said, it's time. I'm going to run across Colorado for epilepsy, and I'm going to start crying right now. And he said, he looked at me and he said, okay. He's like, let's do this. And so I got to Colorado a couple days later, and I called Brian McKenzie and I said, dude, I'm going to do this. Can you help me? I don't know how. That's when it happened right there.
That's when
I just decided.
Well, when you're out in the middle of like the wilderness with your two dogs, anything can happen. I mean, that's
anything,
like,
anything. I mean, anybody can run 500 miles and that happens. So yeah, so the longest I've ever run is I ran a marathon in 2006, I think it was. And that's the longest I've ever run to date. I still haven't, in my training, I've only run 15 miles with Brian, and I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I have no idea what to expect, but it's been the last 2.5 months of planning this thing. The running is going to be the easiest part. The running, I mean, that's going to be the part to go do. The planning has been absolutely exhausting, but I'm honestly, people keep asking me, like, are you scared to run? I'm not scared to run. I'm really nervous where my brain's going to go for 500 miles.
How many days do you guys think this is going to take you guys?
I have it set up for 30 days. I'm not trying to race it. I'm just trying to complete it healthy and, or healthy as you can after running 500 miles and do, I have a bunch of PR events. So the CrossFit community, I've reached out to, there's 8 CrossFit gyms along the way that I'm going to be stopping at and doing little PR events, whether I guest coach or just tell them, hey, this is what I'm doing. Please help, and see if they want to run out of their town with me, which there's been a lot of response for that. And I'm doing a really big event on October 4th at Sopris CrossFit in Carbondale. There's a group of people, Michelle Kinney, Pat Burke, Emily Schramm, and Becky Conzelman are all coming up from Denver, volunteering their time to do an event there where people can come and be a part of their workout with them. And I'm doing a silent auction, and then there's a neurologist coming to speak and pediatricians coming to speak. And it's people are coming out of the woodworks to help. And it just shows you how amazing people are. Innately, people want to just be good and help,
Well, I think what you're seeing is that, that is an absolute truth about people, but people need, it turns out that like snowflakes don't form unless there's that ion, that crystal, right?
Dust particle.
Yeah, you have to have some dust particle. And so, you have to have that silver iodide or whatever's in the air to start the process. And, and I think love that this is, it's personal, and it's in your wheelhouse. And I think it shows a model that, it's easy to do this and go push yourself and rally your community around, your own business. I think it's fantastic. Are you running north to south, east to west, west to east? How's this going?
South to north. South to north. New Mexico border to Wyoming border.
There's a lot of mountains that way. Isn't it easier this way?
A lot. Like it's all. The plan was to go east to west, and I was looking at the calendar, and no offense to anybody that lives in Kansas or the Denver area, but I was like, Marcus, I cannot run for 200 miles through the plains. Like I can't do it. So
if you do, once you do go to LaBawLife.com, her calendar is clickable links for each day, and you can see the distance, the elevation gain and loss, and then obviously the location she's going to be at.
And that's LaBaw Live or LaBaw Life?
Life, like
LIFE.
So LABAW life.com.
Yes, and it literally gets my heart racing when I go through the calendar and look at each day and like see the mileage and the elevation gain and loss. I'm like, wow.
The first 3 days are pretty much marathon days. I don't know how to plan this stuff. I just put it on paper. It looked good.
Let me ask you this. So it's not like you don't have an enormous aerobic base. You're a regular runner. People just don't know this about you. One of your secrets, I think, to your CrossFitting and general physical preparedness and capacity is that you always maintain a big aerobic base. Like you're one of the most aerobically fit athletes I know as a background, even for someone who also can clean and snatch and front squat. It's impressive. You also are strong enough and your mechanics are good enough. So it's not like you haven't been spending, better part of a long time, make sure the tissues can tolerate this. Can you talk about, because you haven't reconstituted this from scratch, it's not like you're a TNT runner off the couch running a marathon and facing some of those things, but twisting your training into a single sport and into a high volume single sport comes at some costs. And there are some lessons. Because what we'd like everyone to do on the planet is keep a ready state. You're always fit, you're always strong, and then you go wild and then come back. Get a wild hair, go wild, do something, come back. And you talk about your experience shifting your training into a single mode and some of the lessons and feeling things. I mean, being a long distance runner, I mean, we know Dean Karnassus, we've talked to plenty of endurance elite runners, but it's different when it's you, when I think of you as a kind of a power endurance athlete versus a strict endurance athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been, I mean, when I started working with Brian, it's only been 2.5 months. Like I wouldn't say that I've really been training for 500 miles. I've just been training to get my tissues ready for 500 miles. But I've lost strength. That's going to happen, right? So I'm getting like 2 to 3 days of gym time, and the rest has been running. But I love the way that Brian programs. It's not a typical what people would think of endurance. I'm not going out and just pounding out mile after mile after mile. I'm actually doing interval stuff. I'm doing heart rate stuff. I'm paying attention to the quality of movement with running, not just going out and pounding the pace.
And this is Brian McKenzie of IamUnscared.com,
yeah.
right, of CrossFit Endurance. And you can follow him at I Am Unscared. And I have to be honest, Brian programmed for me for the Molokai race, and he's been programming for Juliet's team for Molokai race. Juliet's out there doing like 10 brutal 4-minute. It's not easy. It's not just like low for long. I mean, it is really hard, ugly training, but just different than you think. It's not like 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles.
Right. I mean, you don't have to, and you don't want to do that. I mean, when I trained for my marathon in 2006, it was mile after mile after mile after mile. I had Achilles stuff. I had all sorts of injuries happening because it was just about the volume, not about the quality of the programming, and it was not good. It was not good.
Sustainable.
It was not sustainable. So
there's a couple things about his programming I think that I know about you. One is that it does respect your time. It assumes that you're very strong and move well, right? And the competency around that is important. But also it's not 4 or 5 hour runs all the time. Like you can actually work a job, you can maintain some strength and speed strength, but it does still big time respect your aerobic capacity. And, when I do 10-minute brutal pieces, I did like 6 10-minute pieces yesterday. Like that's not nothing.
You're spent, right? Yeah, you're spent. I mean, you get more bang for your buck for sure. I mean, if you ever think about doing any type of endurance stuff and you don't know where to start, I would strongly suggest. I'm not trying to pitch this, but Brian's great. He knows what he's doing, and even going to CrossFit Endurance, if you need to have something, if you just want to start working this, go to CrossFit Endurance, because it is more of the interval type workouts that are going to make you better, but not break you down.
What have you noticed about tweaks in nutrition? I hear you say I'm having to eat some more carbohydrate to support this. I also hear, in there, have there been any, is you focus, I mean, even a 10-week, 11-week block of really just kind of, narrowing down, have you found I've lost some strength, but that's okay? Or what are some of the other things that you found out about, what it looks like to be a runner?
Well, yeah, I've definitely lost strength, and it is okay. But at the same time, I haven't cleaned. I had a shoulder injury, so I haven't really done any Olympic lifting. And I went out there, and what was it?
When's the last time you cleaned?
Heavy, I don't know. The last time I cleaned probably since, maybe more, something like that. But I went out and I cleaned 195, which for not doing it, that's not a huge drop in strength, and I probably could have done more. So I think our body remembers, right? You're not going to lose a lot from that. One thing, which I haven't really said before, but when you run or when you have one single modality like that, you're not working through a full range of motion ever. So one thing to keep in mind is if you are going to just turn into a runner and do that single modality, you can't forget about your strength training. You can't forget about doing a full depth squat a couple times a week. You can't forget about doing a full push-up, getting your joints moving through their full range of motion so that you don't lose function of the joint.
Oh, you're speaking to my, are you just saying that for me? You're just saying that for me.
Yeah, that's only for you. Yeah.
So
she doesn't do that at all.
You guys are about to embark on a month. The amount of the people and support behind this project is big time.
Yeah.
You're raising money. I can make a donation. All the links I need to know, LaBawLive.com. That's all I need. If I can find out links to the epilepsy, where is all of this goodness going? You're going to raise. You have incredible videos on there. My daughters have seen them. They're, it's really fantastic. But you are raising money. Where's that money going?
It's going to the Epilepsy Foundation, the National Epilepsy Foundation, which is a phenomenal organization that's been around for for decades, and their goal is education and research. So they let me choose where I want my money to go to, and there's different avenues, and I chose education and research to help find a cure. And they're very good about getting the money where it's supposed to go, so trust them on that. I've just become a athlete advocate for their Athletes versus Epilepsy program as well, which is a huge honor. The president flew out literally for lunch one day. He flew out to Chico across the country to come say hi, and just a good group of people. So that's where the money is going. So there's a link on LaBawLife.com. I think it's under donate. I think there's just a tab that says donate up there that you can plug and play. The goal is $50,000. That's my goal. So
we should be trying to update people on the fly as we go. I'm going to be kind of traveling along, following, filming, taking pictures. So her Instagram and/or website will have updates.
And give us those links. What are those links right now, guys?
Yes. So
Instagram is just Jen LaBaw, JenLabaw. And then Facebook is Jenny LaBaw. And
then her obviously website's LaBaw, LIFE.com, LaBaw Life. And then CrossFit also is going to put together, or I'm going to put together for CrossFit a 3-part series. So down the road, after the event happens, you'll be able to kind of relive this whole before the event, the prepping, the planning, the whole event, and then the aftermath. So
I know I ran 50K once, and I don't want to relive that. That ain't
what I was just gonna say. I'm like, I don't really want to.
That was awful. That was disgusting.
We're gonna sugarcoat it. We're gonna sprinkle sugar on top.
I just want to say, I know you are a private person and very humble, and I feel like the transformation for you switching to becoming, you've never said, hey, I'm not epilepsy. I'm more, it's not even a factor. I think you could be one of your friends and not even know that you've been dealing with this since a child. I mean, you'd be a terrible friend if you know that, but you get the idea. You don't put it, it's not prominent. And I think to switch and sort of become an advocate for it, does represent sort of that next level that you're saying, hey, look, this is something that I've dealt with and I can inspire people with, and I'm really proud of you guys. And I'm going to say, obviously, Jenny, for you to say, stand up and sort of become an advocate for people and show people that, what's possible and that, how you've lived life as a model. And Marcus is, as a spouse living with someone with epilepsy, sometimes people don't understand the inherent stress or the load on the person. And when you read, Wired Magazine recently had an article about a young girl who suffered from epilepsy. I know you guys know this, and just the load and the fear of her mother not knowing if she was just never going to come out of seizures, and that the kids were seizing so often that they just couldn't even, get through the day. And when they dropped down to only 30 seizures a day, they were so stoked because they could actually interact. And, and Marcus, I really, as a partner to someone with, chronic disease, you are just such a stellar example of the spouse relationship. And it really is a shout out to everyone who's a spouse or a loved one who helps manage that, because it really is a community, and the load on the family is a big deal. And the fact that you also can then, talk about this, and this is why I really important to have both you guys on, because you are the second half of this adventure. This adventure, is really allegory for the support of the dyad or the family. And I just want to, hats off to you guys, because it's such a big deal. And I really just respect the two of you guys for how you talk about this. Jenny, for being the person, Marcus, for being the surrogate for all of the people who live with people and take care of the people with chronic diseases. It's really amazing. You guys are such studs.
Thanks, guys.
Means a lot, dude, for sure, to hear that coming from you, because you and Juliet kind of have a similar dynamic, and that's a reality for you guys as well. But on a different topic, what you touched on, living with epilepsy, like she's not the type of person that's going to be like, hey, I need help. You know what I mean? She's a very strong person.
I hate asking for help.
And a lot of people with epilepsy take that approach that, hey, I don't really want other people to know, because then if they know, then they're going to worry. And then if they worry, they're going to want to help. And if they're going to want to help, it's like, no, I just want to be able to try to get through it on my own. And epileptics are always trying to work through it on their own. And I think that shift represents, maturity, like you said, being able to say, I can take this and maybe I can do some good with it, but also it was the next level for an elite athlete. And I think that's an important piece too, because there's a lot of elite athletes, whether it's CrossFit or it's basketball or football or whatever it may be, that never find the way to take that next step. And I'm very proud of her that she's able to take this little tiny platform that she was given and grew and nurtured within CrossFit world, and she's able to take that platform and do something cool with it. And I think that's, for me, that's what I'm most proud of, that number one, she's able to come out of the box and say, I have epilepsy, and kind of expose herself. And that's been 3 years. But then two, what can I do with this? What can I do with my platform that I've gained as an athlete? And what does it look like? And like you said, it takes a dust particle or, whatever it is for snow to form. And it's the same thing for humans. Humans are, the ambition's there, the willingness is there as human beings to get behind causes, but you got to have a cause and you got to have something to tug at the heartstrings before people come out of the woodwork. And I think that's what I'm most proud of for what she's doing right now.
And there's no way, Kelly, you said it, there's no way that I wouldn't have ever in 2012 put out that video living with epilepsy. But well, number one, he did the video, so it wouldn't happen. But I wouldn't have had the courage or the strength. He's the one that said you have to do this. Like this is your chance to do what you want to do to help people, and it's transpired to this. And I mean I can't explain how amazing it feels to be able to talk on the phone with somebody that I don't know from New Hampshire that calls me and says, I saw your video. I've never told anybody I have epilepsy. I don't know what to do. And I talk for an hour and a half, and we get to the point where she tells me her entire life story. Like, and she hasn't told her best friend that, that's why this is happening. And no matter what the outcome, if I finish the 500 miles and there's not another cent gained for the Epilepsy Foundation, or this is why it's happening. That's just one example. For in the last 3 years, in the last 2.5 months, there's been people that have reached out to me and told me that they've just all their stories, they lost their daughter at 7 years old to epilepsy, and now they've developed a medicinal marijuana law in Wisconsin. Like there's just these stories out of nowhere that are, you're not alone. Like no matter what, like if you have epilepsy and you can't talk about it, find a forum, find somebody. There are people out there that are going through the same crap, and not just epilepsy, anything, and just you're going to be fine. You're going to make it.
Every day she's running in the name of somebody that has reached out to her, which I think is really cool. So very personal, very, very
Sorry,
real.
We just went off on a long tangent, but yeah, it's this is as real as it gets. I've never done anything like this in my life, and I'm terrified.
Well, what I can tell you is, seeing this evolution of athlete from fierce, leopardess that you are. You're fierce, so vulnerable, makes you so much fiercer and really, frankly, hard to be around because you're so, it's amazing. It's so inspiring. As your friend, I'm inspired. As just an outsider walking in, and shout out to just the fact that. Brilliance and courage doesn't happen as an isolated phenomenon. It's not a solo individual against the world. It always happens in context of family and definitely as a creative dyad. The two of you guys, Marcus Brown, you're the man. I'm so proud of you. Jenny, I can't wait to see what happens. We will retweet and follow you along as I consider you one of my athletes. And I'm so grateful that you can run when so many of us don't want to. And we will we'll
carry those words with me all 500 miles.
You're going to have a moment where you're going to be like, thank goodness Kelly's not here because he couldn't do this. That's what I want you to do.
Every time she's walking and not running, I'll take a picture and I'll text it to you so you know.
So Kelly, you could be walking. You could be walking. You guys, I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much. We'll put links in the show notes of this. Again, LaBaw LaBawLife.com. But maybe I want to see LaBaw live. That's like the new TV show about the awesome too. And what you guys are accomplishing, it's going to be such an adventure. And I'd love to do a debrief about what you learned about going so far and so long, because it's going to be such an interesting idea. And if this point is self-actualization, you got to go see. You got to go find out.
You don't know unless you do it.
Thanks for having us, Kelly.
Thank
It's been
Kelly.
awesome.
Love you guys. Thank you so much. We will follow you guys live. You guys, thanks for joining us on the M1 Hangout. Jenny LaBaw, Marcus Brown, you know, and I would just go on record saying I'd pay money to be born into that family. Love you guys.
Love you too, buddy.